Imagine you are 8 years old, staring through a toy microscope. You want to see an ant up close, but you want it perfectly still, intact. So you trap it in a small sample tube and wait for it to run out of oxygen. But then, as the hours tick by, something shifts. Without any adult telling you what to do, you suddenly realize that what you're doing is incredibly cruel. You feel an unbearable sadness, an overwhelming empathy for this tiny creature, and you rush to the garden to set it free. This was the childhood experience of philosopher Susana Monsó, and it's the spark for a question that science is only just beginning to answer. Does that ant know it's dying? Does any animal actually understand the great beyond, or are we the only ones haunted by our own mortality?
For a long time, the consensus was clear. Humans are the only mortals. Philosophers and scientists argued that while a rabbit might flee a fox, it's only fleeing pain, not the end of its existence. We were told that animals live in a perpetual present, anonymous and thoughtless, spared the conceptual weight of death that we carry. We build monuments, hold elaborate funerals, and write poetry about loss, assuming our animal cousins are just too simple to join the club. But if you've ever seen a dog sit by its owner's empty bed for weeks, or a chimpanzee cradling a lifeless infant, you know there's a massive curiosity gap here. Are we just projecting our human feelings onto them? Or have we been profoundly underestimating the minds of the wild?
Let's go back to 2008, to a safari park in Scotland. An elderly chimpanzee named Pansy is reaching the end of her life. Her troop doesn't just watch, they change their entire social structure. They stop sleeping on their usual high platforms and build nests on the ground to stay right beside her. When Pansy finally takes her last breath, the group falls silent. They peer into her face, caressing her skin with unusual tenderness. One male, Chippy, even pounds on her chest as if trying to jumpstart her heart. For weeks afterward, the survivors are profoundly subdued. They eat less, they barely speak, and they avoid the platform where she died for months. This wasn't just a reaction to an absence. This was a group of animals witnessing the exact moment life turns into corpse, and they were clearly moved by it.
But how do they process it? Susana Monsó argues that we've been using a double standard. We assume that to understand death, you need to grasp complex ideas like eternity or universality. But her research suggests a much simpler, minimal concept of death that is likely widespread in nature. It requires just two things: non-functionality, knowing that the body has stopped working, and irreversibility, knowing that it's never coming back. Think of it as a holy trinity of learning. You need the right brain power, cognition, the right bond, emotion, and the right exposure, experience. An elephant isn't born a philosopher, but after 60 years of seeing its family members fall, it builds a mental map of what it means for a body to be broken beyond repair.
Look at the evidence piling up across the globe. Take Taliqua, the orca mother who became a global icon in 2018. She carried her dead calf on her rostrum for 17 days, traveling over 1,000 miles. Some scientists called it a tour of grief, while skeptics said she was just confused. But consider the energy cost. Carrying a heavy body for that long is exhausting and dangerous. She wasn't just hoping it would wake up. She was struggling to break a maternal bond that death had already severed. Then there are the crows. When a crow dies, the flock gathers in a loud, chaotic swarm. But this isn't a funeral in the human sense. It's a forensic investigation. Crows are among the smartest birds on Earth. They gather to study the scene, identify the threat,
whether it's a hawk or a specific human face, and warn the rest of the flock to avoid that area for weeks.
Perhaps most cinematic of all are the recent discoveries in the tea plantations of India. Researchers found that Asian elephant herds were carrying dead calves to irrigation ditches, burying them with their legs pointing toward the sky, and then trumpeting loudly in what looked like a communal ritual. After the burial, the herds didn't just move on. They took entirely different migration routes to avoid the burial site. It's as if they were creating their own forbidden zones of memory. Even in our own homes, the evidence is there. A recent study found that domestic cats, often thought to be aloof, show clear signs of grieving when a fellow pet dies, even if it was the family dog. They lose their appetite, struggle to sleep, and spend hours looking for their lost companion.
But here is the twist that challenges everything we think we know about human concepts. If animals don't understand death, why is playing dead such a successful survival strategy? It's called thanatosis. When an opossum feels threatened, it doesn't just pretend to sleep. It adopts the exact facial expression of a corpse. Its heart rate drops, and it even expels a putrid liquid that smells like rotting meat. This trick works because the predator has a concept of death. A lion or a leopard understands that old meat is dangerous and likely diseased. They discard the corpse to look for something fresh. The very existence of this behavior proves that the predator's brain is equipped to recognize death and make a survival decision based on it.
Even more shocking is the reality behind the dogs eating their owners horror stories. When people die alone, their dogs often end up nibbling on their faces. To us, it seems like a betrayal, but scientists believe it's actually a manifestation of love. The dog starts by licking and nudging the face, the human's communicative center, desperately trying to get a reaction. When the human remains a broken body, the dog becomes frustrated and stressed. Since dogs de-stress by using their mouths to lick and nibble, one thing tragically leads to another. It's not a lack of empathy. It's an empathy so intense, it has nowhere to go.
So, what does this actually mean for us? If we accept that we share the planet with beings who can feel the weight of a silence that never ends, we have to rethink our relationship with the wild. We can no longer tell ourselves that animals don't know what's happening to them in factory farms or entertainment parks. They may not have our symbolic myths or our religious rituals, but they clearly understand that a life can be snuffed out. An understanding of death isn't a high-level cognitive prize. It's a basic part of the common essence of life. They grieve because they have loved, and they understand death because they have lived.
This brings us to a final, heavy question. If we could talk to them, would we find that they are actually more at peace with death than we are? We are the only ones who know that death is inevitable for everyone, which can lead to a lifetime of existential dread. Animals might know they can die, but they don't necessarily know they must die. Now, think about your own life. Have you ever seen a pet or a wild animal react to a loss in a way that left you convinced they understood exactly what happened? Tell us your story in the comments. Let's bridge that gap together.